Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the undergraduate webinar series, an interactive online platform connecting high school students to the Ashoka community. In this series, we aim to cover topics related to Ashoka's undergraduate program. My name is Rangoli Dhingra, and I work with the Office of Outreach at Ashoka University. Thank you for joining us for today's session on Merit-cum-Means scholarship for computer science and the sciences and need-based financial aid at Ashoka University. Feel free to post any questions you may have in the Q&A box. We'll be taking them up at the end of the session. Joining us today is Senior Director, Strategic Initiatives and Financial Aid, Mr. Vineet Sabharwal, who will help us understand Ashoka University's financial aid policy. Vineet will also talk in details about the Merit-cum-Means scholarship for computer science and the sciences, and how through this scholarship, Ashoka takes another step ahead in making higher education affordable for all. Through the session, we will also be joined by senior members of the financial aid team, and together they will help us address all our queries pertaining to financial aid. Without further delay, let's get started. Hi, Vineet, and welcome today to this webinar.
Thank you, Rangoli. Happy to be here.
Great. Vineet, to begin with, I'm going to ask you to just, most of us are aware of Ashoka's need-based financial aid, but can you please tell us about the recently introduced Merit-cum-Means scholarship for computer science and the sciences?
Sure. First of all, thank you for organizing this. This is the first time that we've launched a new sort of an offering in the umbrella of financial aid, where we've largely only focused on providing need-based aid. But this is an initiative to recognize and identify exceptional students in the field of computer science and pure sciences, and students who have either applied this year already or are intending to apply in any of the rounds that remain, and will be a part of the incoming batch in 2022. If they intend to major in any of the programs that we've listed here, which is computer science, physics, chemistry, math, or biology, and if they do qualify based on a certain criteria that we will talk about, they stand to earn either a full waiver on their tuition fee or even a full waiver on the residence fee along with tuition fee based on certain criteria. So it's really an initiative to recognize some of those exceptional candidates who intend to join Ashoka and study some of these majors.
Great. So as I just mentioned, this definitely is another huge step in making higher education affordable for all. So I'm sure a lot of science students are looking at understanding this scholarship better. So with that in mind, I'll just move on to the first question that comes to my mind, Vineet. What is the total number of science scholarships that will be offered every year? And since we have a round-wise admissions process, application process, is there a quota for each round of admission?
Sure. So each year we intend to recognize about 25 exceptional students in who intend to major in these subjects that I mentioned. And this is for each of the batches coming in starting from the intake of 2022. Roughly about 20 of these students will get a waiver on tuition, and about 5 of them will also get a waiver on their residence fee.
Great. So, Vineet, just help me understand, even though we do not, students can apply in any round and they don't stand to lose at all. But in this case, do you suggest, or do you advise the science students to definitely apply earlier on in the academic year, in the first couple of rounds, maybe?
Yes, you can say that, because this is the first time that we also have a limited number of seats available for any sort of a financial support. So as we will talk about our need-based financial aid program, our philosophy there and our commitment there is very clear. Once you get an offer of admission, based on your family's financial standing, you will get some level of aid, depending on if you qualify against in certain income-based criteria, income and lifestyle-based criteria. But in this case, the number itself is capped to 25.
Right.
Because we really want to handpick the top 25 students who deserve this scholarship and will be able to make the best of their studies at Ashoka. And if I take that into perspective, while there is no quota for each round we will pick students as they come. It automatically becomes a first come first served model. So if we do end up selecting 25 in the first 3 rounds, then we'll have to live with that. So the sooner you apply, the better. Of course, since we've launched this in the middle of the year this time, you have still you still have students still have round 3 and round 4 to apply as to apply to Ashoka as for their selection. But even students who applied to us in round 1, round 2 will be eligible to apply for this particular scholarship.
Right. So that sounds quite fair, Vineet. And when you talk about, handpick and selection, so here I would just want you to just tell us all that you can about the eligibility criteria for this Merit-cum-Means scholarship.
Absolutely. So we like to do things in a fairly detailed fashion at Ashoka, even though sometimes it does, run the risk of sounding a bit complex. But the intent is to actually go through a certain rigor in the process and select students, again, holistically. Even for the scholarship, we want to select students holistically. So it's roughly a 3-stage process, but I want to reiterate that it has nothing to do with getting an offer of admission from Ashoka. So the offer of admission is not linked with the scholarship. In fact, that's a precondition. So you must have an offer in hand, and the offer of admission is a student will get an admission based on our existing policy and process of holistic admissions. It will not be mixed up with getting the scholarship. However, once you get a confirmed offer, and therefore, if you've been a round 1 student and you already have an offer in hand, or if you applied in round 2 and you've gone through the process, you will be receiving, if you do receive an offer, you will receive an offer by the end of next week. All of those students are by default eligible to be screened for this process. But once you get an offer, there is a 3-stage process that we will follow. The first is that you should have a certain minimum score in your class 12 boards. For the intake of 22, that number is 98%. So anybody who has 98% or more is eligible. Or you could also display exceptional candidature if you have a certain set of scores in national entrance tests. And these national tests are tests which are the KVPY, the Kishore Vaigyanik Protsahan Yojana, or a certain score in IIT JEE entrance test, which is which happens every year, or also the NEET entrance test that takes place every year. So and each of those criteria are mentioned in detail on our website, which we will share as a part of this webinar. So you can go through the steps, but you could either be somebody who gets a certain score in your 12th exams, or you could get a certain rank in any of these tests. If that happens, that starts the process, which is you become eligible to apply. We will then intimate you, because we'll have all these scores from you as a part of our admissions process as well. In some cases, we may not have those scores because we've just launched this program. We will reach out to you and we'll ask for some of those scores as and when they're available. So, for example, the NEET and JEE scores will be available much later in the year. So we will reach out and ask. But as I said, that's the starting point. Once you are eligible based on that number or that cutoff, you will then be required to fill a statement of purpose, detailing out in about 300 words on why do you want to study one of these subjects at Ashoka. And that really is the SOP, or the statement of purpose, which will define, apart from your score. And as I said, we do everything in a holistic way. It will help us understand why are you passionate about the subject that you want to study and you intended to major at Ashoka. We will combine the two, and then we will seek another intervention from the faculty and the faculty of the department that you want to study in. And that faculty will then interview the students. And based on these 3 inputs, which is your academic score plus your SOP plus the interview from the faculty, you could either get, and if you get finally selected out from this process, you could either get a full waiver on your tuition fee, or you could also earn a full waiver on your residence fee. Within all of this, and as all of you would have read and the students would have read, it's a Merit-cum-Means scholarship. So while we want to identify merit based on a holistic process of these 3 things, which is score, SOP, and the interview. We also want to keep in mind that you should be from a certain income level and below, so that we can support you financially. So that income cutoff is also available on our website. Currently, for the coming year, we mentioned it as 40 lakhs per annum of pre-tax income of your family. So if you really put all of this together, and if I summarize, you must have an offer in hand, and you should have intended to study in any of those four majors that we have listed down. And after that, we'll go through the three-step process of scores, SOP, interview, and then we'll match it off with income. And all of those things we'll be sending you a form to fill those details. And once you are successful, as I said, you could either get a full waiver on tuition or a full waiver on tuition plus residence as well.
Great. So that really, really sums it up well, Vineet. And I know you mentioned it, but if you can just, tell me once again, what if a student, and there's a high chance that they won't have their 12th grade scores and their, national entrance test results at the time of applying or at the time of getting an offer from the university? Can these be furnished at a later date?
Fair question. Yes, they can be. So what we will do at this stage is every student who applies to us is required to at least furnish their predicted class 12 scores. And it's either self-predicted or predicted by a counselor or both. Now, what we will do in this case is that really becomes a starting point for us. We can use that score. And if you qualify based on that score, we can give you a conditional scholarship, which means that as and when your final scores are available, you just have to submit those scores back to us, and we will just reconfirm the scholarship. So it's because we understand that board results really come out towards the end of the admission cycle. They typically would come out by July or later in July, and we just got to know that CBSE and ISC have released their date sheets. So exams won't end until mid of June, and therefore we don't expect results to come out at least until mid of July or later part of July. So we acknowledge that we will use the predicted scores. So that's section one. Anyway, we mentioned that it's either of the academic cutoff. So it could be either a class 12 score, or it could be JEE or NEET or KVPY. Since again, people won't have their JEE and NEET scores at this stage, as and when they're available, they can send them to us and we'll plug them into our process. And if they qualify, and if we have seats left out of those 25, then those students will get a chance.
Great. Thank you so much for this clarification, Vineet. And just to make sure that all the students who are listening in have got it totally right, you first have to get a confirmed offer, and then this entire process begins. Am I right in that, Vineet?
Absolutely, and that offer has nothing to do with the scholarship. So
yes,
you go through the process like you have anyways done, and your selection is not based on a cutoff. We continue with the process. So,
that sounds absolutely fair. Vineet, also to move on to my next question, is this particular scholarship that the student secures, will this be applicable to all the 3 or 4 years that the student is going to be at Ashoka?
Yes, in principle, this is exactly like our need-based philosophy, which is once you get it, it's available to you for your entire stay at Ashoka. However, since this is a merit-based scholarship, there's one condition that we have to adhere to, which is that you have to maintain a certain academic record, which is not the case in our need-based financial aid program, and that currently at that threshold stands at about a GPA of 3.5. Again, something that we've mentioned very clearly on our website, and that really connects the merit aspect with the fact that we are granting this scholarship because we've recognized you as an exceptional student. I do want to say that this is in addition or sort of a complementary offer to the students along with their need-based financial aid. So, for example, I do want to illustrate. For example, you could be somebody who would have anyway gotten, let's say, a 65% waiver on tuition. Now, because of this process, what you're getting is, let's say, 100% waiver on tuition. In a worst case scenario, when you're studying at Ashoka, if your CGPA does fall below 3.5, you will only lose the merit component and you will not lose the entire scholarship. So we have made sure that the need-based component is protected. So your 65% waiver on tuition will still continue. It's only the additional component that you got because of this merit scholarship that might be curtailed until you gain back in terms of your CGPA. Now that's something that may be a little difficult to understand, but the intent behind this policy is so that uh, we are fair to students' need, and therefore the scholarship doesn't come at the cost of their need. So one big recommendation that I'll have for all the students is that when you're applying for this scholarship, once you get an offer in hand and once you go through the criteria and you, for example, you realize that you are somebody who's above 98% and you want to apply for this scholarship, do apply for need-based aid as well. Don't only just apply for this scholarship. So apply for need-based aid. What that will help us do is make sure that we are able to give you the benefit of both. And again, in the future, it will help you out because just in case if something happens and you're not able to maintain the CGPA, at least your need-based component will be.
Absolutely. You quite preempted that question because I was about to ask if a student should actually go ahead and apply for the need-based financial aid as well as the science scholarship. So in this case, you say, yes, they should go ahead.
They should. Yeah, the way the process will run, it's going to run parallelly. So anyway, you will have to provide some income details while applying for the merit scholarship. More details to it, that becomes a financial aid form for need aid. And our intent is that we will release both the decisions together. So once you get an offer and you apply for scholarship as well as need-based aid, in a certain stipulated time, you will get a response from us, which will contain the final financial support that you're getting from us, which will contain both these components. So we want to assure you that that the decision will come out together. So it's imperative that you apply at the same time.
Perfect. So that's a whole lot of information about something that's just been introduced, and thank you so much for that, Vineet. Before we wrap up this particular segment, Vineet, I'd like to ask you, there's this question that keeps coming up very often. Why is this Merit-cum-Means scholarship only for the sciences? So if you could just...
Again, it's a fair question. And I want to say that this is just a start. This is a donor-led initiative where a certain set of donors want to promote research in the field of pure sciences and computer science. But it's a step in a larger direction, which is that right now we have a set of donors who are interested in a particular field. As and when we grow, and this is a phase where Ashoka is going to grow by leaps and bounds across various disciplines, because we are a multidisciplinary liberal education institute. As and when we grow over the next few years into the next phase, we expect that more and more donors will come forward to support us for different areas as well. And therefore, this will act as a template for the future. So this is just the beginning. I'm very confident that in years to come, there's more to come in terms of similar scholarships for other programs as well. Rangoli, I think you're on mute.
Yes. Am I audible now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. I'm sorry about that. So yes, that was really a lot of useful information about a relatively new scholarship, the Merit-cum-Means scholarship for sciences at Ashoka University. And it does open up a world of possibilities for students who are looking at research opportunities backed by the flexibility of a liberal education pedagogy. So that really is a wonderful, wonderful initiative. And we are here to talk more about this with you, Vineet. But we'll just take a break from you here. And moving on to our flagship need-based financial aid program, I now invite amongst us Jyoti Bhatia, Senior Manager Financial Aid, and Hridesh Joshi, Manager Financial Aid, Ashoka University. With hands-on experience in facilitating financial aid for students over the years, there are a lot of questions that Jyoti and Hridesh can answer. So for those of you who are listening in, please continue to type your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll definitely take them up shortly. Hi, Jyoti. Hi, Hridesh. Welcome to this webinar.
Hi, Rangoli. Thank you for the introduction.
Rangoli. Great. Happy to have you here. So without further delay, let me shoot my first question. What exactly do we mean by need-based financial aid, and what has its impact been over the years since we started the university?
Okay. So talking about need-based financial aid, well, when we started this institute and the idea almost 10 to 12 years back, it was supposed to be and currently is the largest collective philanthropy in education in India. About 150 donors have come together in the last 10 or 11 years to pool in their personal resources. They all have been aligned to a single mission and vision, which is that quality education should be available to all. It should not be restricted based on an individual's ability to pay. So effectively, what it is trying to do is it's trying to create a level playing field for everyone and anyone who wants to study at Ashoka. We believe that when students get selected to study at Ashoka, they all should have an equal chance to succeed academically at Ashoka. However, we do acknowledge that many of them may financially not be at the same level. Many of them may not be able to afford the fee either in part or in full. So therefore, we have this program which looks at your ability to pay rather than your academic standing. It really creates that level playing field for students so that once they get selected, they get an equal chance to study and their ability to pay does not become a hindrance in joining Ashoka. Well, the impact of this need-based program has been quite huge. If I add up all the numbers from the beginning, then almost around 3,700 students have been benefited from this program. They paid only a part or did not pay any amount of fee. And almost 320 crore rupees went into funding education of these students. So this is an amount which has been unheard of in this country, going only towards need-based financial aid.
Great. Thank you so much for that information, Jyoti. It makes me very happy to share with our listeners here today that last year, more than 50% students have benefited by the need-based financial aid program. And correct me if I'm wrong, we've shelled out around 75 crores towards this initiative. Is that right?
Right. So for all the incoming students in the last academic year, we have spent around 75 crore rupees for this need-based financial aid.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that information, Jyoti. I hope the students are taking note, and more than that, the parents are taking note, because this is an initiative that everybody should make use of at this stage in their academic life. So tell me, Jyoti, is there any eligibility to apply for financial aid? And when exactly can a student apply for this aid?
Okay, so anybody can apply for financial aid. There is absolutely no limitation, but there's only a logistical step involved, which is that this process starts only when a student receives a firm offer of admission. So when a student receives a mail for a firm offer of admission, it would also say that their financial aid form is now open. And on their student portal, they will find a link to fill in the financial aid form. Now, talking about the timelines, so for round 3, the financial aid form will open on 27th of May 2022 and it will close on 31st of May 2022. So all students will have 5 days after they receive a firm offer of admission to complete the financial aid form. We really believe that if the student feels that they cannot pay the fee in part or in full, they should really feel free to apply for financial aid. The form is free of cost, so they don't have to pay anything. They just need to start filling the form and submit it in a stipulated time.
So that sounds quite fair. And in fact, we at the outreach, when we are talking to students about their application process and the fee part of it, we do find it a little challenging to convince them that yes, their applications are going to be looked at quite favorably in the coming days. So well, here we have some more details from Jyoti.
Yeah, so this is just the timelines for round 3, which I've just shared. That 27th of May, the financial aid form will open, and 31st of May, the financial aid form closes. So all students will get 5 days to submit the form.
Great. Thank you so much, Jyoti. That really is a very, very useful information. Moving on to Ridesh. Ridesh, and I know that you work very closely with the students. So could you share with us how easy, or rather I'd stick to how easy is it to apply for financial aid?
Yeah, thanks, Rangoli, for your question. Like Jayati said, the first thing that the students should have is that they should have gotten a firm offer of admission from the university. So in our experience, once the financial aid process starts, it just takes about a day or two to fill in the form, provided you have all the documents and information ready. And therefore, we would urge all students, all prospective applicants of the financial aid form to please look through the financial aid form on the financial aid page on the Ashoka website, so that you have an idea of what documents we ask for, and you keep all of them ready before the actual 5-day deadline sets in. So once you have all the documents, once you have all the information, it won't take more than a day or 2 days to fill in the form. So it's a fairly easy form to fill in, though it needs quite a few details to be filled in. But and if you do come across any issue, the financial aid team is there to help you out with the smallest of queries that you may have.
Yeah, vouch for that, because we call you at least 10 times in a day.
We welcome your calls. We really welcome your calls.
Right.
We're more than happy to help you. However, given that it's the financial aid form and we ask for some financial information, we would encourage you to also involve your parents or guardians while filling in the form, because there are some details that you may not understand that your parents may have a better idea about, and therefore it's always better that you involve them while filling in the form. So let me just take a moment to briefly walk you through the main sections of the form. So as you can see on the screen, there are four main sections in the form. The first is the personal and family details section. So this would ask for details such as where you live, where you've studied, your address, your contact details, your family members, their occupations, and so on and so forth. The second is the earning member details and the business professional details section. So this section basically asks for the income details of all the family members. And for applicants who come from business families or where parents are self-employed, we would have another extra subsection for you that you need to fill in, where you'll be required to give details such as the financial statements of the business, ITRs of the business, Form 26AS, and so on. The third section is the wealth and expenses section. So this section basically requires you to provide all the assets and investment details of your family, as well as certain fixed expenses that we ask for your family. And the last section, and a very, very important section, is the comments section. So this section really gives you the opportunity to explain in detail why your family requires financial aid. So you may feel free to write all details that you feel we should know for the purpose of the financial aid. And it's also useful for you to know that our assessment is completely based on what you provide. So please ensure that you provide us with exhaustive information in this section. And also, if there's any information that you haven't been able to provide in the previous sections, feel free to write that here. So these essentially are the 4 sections that you have in the form. And therefore, I would strongly encourage you to read through the financial aid form, the sample financial aid form on the Ashoka website, so that you have an idea about what exactly we ask.
Great. So that is sound advice coming from the senior members of the financial aid team. Please do go through the sample form, the financial aid form, and it definitely will help if you gather your documents and keep it ready for the 5-day window that you get to apply for financial aid. So thank you so much for that, Ridesh. But I would also want to ask you, Ridesh, what are some of the important aspects the applicant has to keep in mind while filling the form responsibly? And the keyword here is responsibly.
Sure. So the first thing and a very important thing is that once you filled in the form, please ensure that you click on the submit button. And also, excuse me, also check that you've gotten an acknowledgement mail from the financial aid office. So that basically validates that you actually submitted the form. Now you'll see on the screen 2 mail IDs, which are admissions@ashoka.edu and financialaid@ashoka.edu.in. So please ensure that you save both these mail IDs in your mailbox so that you don't miss out on any mail that we send to you. just so that, no mail from these two IDs goes into your spam. So please save these two IDs. I would strongly encourage you to do that. The third thing, and I've said that already, but I would like to reiterate here, is that while filling in the form, we suggest that you involve your parents, as sometimes, it is seen that the students may not be exactly aware of the financial details of the family. For instance, in the form, we ask for your income, the annual income at one place and the monthly income at another place. Sometimes we've seen that students get confused between these two, and as you may imagine, the financial figures really go for a toss if you filled in the wrong figure at the wrong place. Therefore, it's very, very important that you involve your parents so that the financial figures that you punch in are more accurate. Another important thing is that, and this is especially for students who may be applying from any other country, some disclosures that we ask for may not necessarily, or at least the nomenclature may not be the same. So in which case, if you have any confusion, any doubt, I would strongly encourage you to please write to us. And another thing that you must ensure is that you write to us within the 5-day deadline within which you need to fill in the form. Because if the deadline is over and you're writing to us after that, there's very little really that we can do to help you. So please write to us within the deadline. We are a very proactive set of people, so we'll be able to respond to you absolutely quickly once you write to us. So yeah, these are a few points that you must keep in mind while you are filling in the form.
So I think I can vouch for the fact that this team is very, very hands-on with attending to panic calls and panic mails at the last minute. 5 days is a short window, no doubts, but enough time for any student to apply. So students, please take note, and you must utilize these 5 days to get the financial aid that you absolutely need. So thank you so much, Videsh. That was very, very useful information. And before we move on to my next question, I think we'll just get in some audience questions here. And there is a very interesting question here by one of the students who's listening in. If a student at Ashoka decides to switch from a non-science major to a science major, for example, in the second year, can they be considered for the merit scholarship for the rest of their studies? So if one of you can just take this, please.
Yeah, I can take. Thank you. So we will decide the eligibility at the time of joining or before joining, not after joining. So in this case, our policy is very clear that it's at the time of, while the process for admission is ongoing and the financial aid process is ongoing, is when you apply. If you do decide to switch later on, it may not be available to you. So it's important that you decide your intended major. And again, it has to be one of those majors that we have listed. It's not that you have to stick to only that major, but if it's any one of those 5 majors that we mentioned, which is computer science, math, physics, chemistry, or biology, within those you can easily switch later as well. But it's a group of those majors. You could take any one, but you have to declare it before joining.
So yes, the process starts and finishes before you join. So that is mandatory. So I hope this answers your question, dear student. And yes, there's another question here, Vineet. I think you will be best to reply to this as well. So can a student apply for 2022 SAT India Top Performer Award by the College Board and financial aid by Ashoka University simultaneously, or the student is eligible only to apply for one of these two?
So we don't restrict people to apply for both, but you will get only one, and therefore there's an understanding that many universities have with College Board, which runs the SAT in India. As a part of this session, what we'll do is maybe we'll paste the link to the details of the College Board India Scholars program, and you can go through the policy in detail. Jayati would have that link. In a few minutes, we'll paste it. You can go through that link, and you can apply for both, but eventually what will happen is that you will get one of the two.
Right. Thank you so much, Vinny. Also, there was one question in the chat box, and I seem to have missed it now. But this was a student who was asking if she opts to do a dual major, and one of them is a science major. So will she be eligible for the scholarship?
Yes, as long as one of them is a science major.
Okay, great. So Obviously, well, then that applies to her entire fee structure. So thank you so much, Vineet. There's something else that came up, and I think you've already answered that to begin with. Will a merit-cum-means based scholarship be introduced in Bachelor of Arts degrees as well?
Well, I can't comment on it right now, but as I said, it's a start, and in the next phase of Ashoka's journey, uh, if donors come forward and they want to do or support research in any particular field, we might get some interest, but not at this stage.
So also something that Ridesh has already mentioned, this question by a student pertains to the documents. So what are the documents needed to apply for the financial aid? And while this might be mentioned in the sample form on the website, Ridesh, if you could just quickly run us through this one, please.
Sure. I'll just give you a brief overview of the kind of documents we ask for. So it'll be the ITRs of your earning parents or guardians, as the case may be, salary slips, as in their salary slips, bank statements for the past 1 year. If you have taken a loan, a vehicle loan, a housing loan, a personal loan, then an EMI statement that basically shows that for the past 1 year. So essentially these documents, and if you come from a business family, then there are certain other documents we ask for, such as the financial statements of the business, ITRs of the business, bank statements, Form 26AS. So yeah, essentially these documents.
Great. Thank you so much. And I hope that answers the question here. There is another question which, yes. This is, again, this I think is a simple one because I think I was listening in well. So will existing science students at Ashoka be eligible to apply for this scholarship?
No, not at this stage. So this is only for the incoming students. And as I said earlier, anyway, this is not a compromise with our need-based financial aid program. So if you are on need-based aid already, anyway, you are getting some financial support from us. This is only for incoming batches of 2022 and onwards.
Thank you, Vineet. And since you are with us this evening, and this is a question that may not be directly connected to this particular webinar, but this is something that comes up for us very, very often. And this is science, BSc versus BTech, and BSc particularly in a liberal education university. So if you could just give us some clarity over that now that we're talking about science scholarships.
Sure. It's definitely a slightly difficult question to answer because there are lines that are blurred sometimes between the two. But to try and explain it to you in very simple terms, usually BTech degrees in our country focus only on specific skills in the field of engineering, whichever field you may pick up, and then you will only study that particular aspect about becoming an engineer. And engineering typically teaches you how things work, and not why things work the way they work. And that's the big difference between a BSc and a technology degree, wherein BSc really takes you to the basics and it makes you understand the skill of asking why in everything that you do. So you could eventually be building robots even after doing BSc, because you understand why we need robots or robotics in our current system. Whereas as an engineer, you'll just learn the skill of how to program a robot or what sort of a material you want to use in building a robot. It's a very narrow way of thinking about building a product or building a technology, whereas BSc is a more wider way of thinking, and it starts with a why, on why do we need something, and combines multiple disciplines. So for example, everybody is talking about the metaverse nowadays. And while metaverse is a product in the domain of computer science, and therefore people might think only computer engineers can make it, but if you really go deep into an understanding of what it does and why it is created, it's an intersection of computer science, psychology, and sociology in many ways, and maybe a little bit of economics now as well, because people are using cryptocurrency and digital currency to sell on the metaverse, and create, for example, retail outlets on the metaverse. So it's an intersection of many disciplines, and people who created this need to have an understanding of all these disciplines instead of just thinking about how to code. So a BTech computer science would know how to code, but a BSc computer science would really understand how this all connects with the entire ecosystem of computer science, technology, economics, sociology, psychology. Why do people need to have a digital avatar? And therefore how to engage with those people.
Great. So it ultimately, I think, boils down to research, and there's a whole lot of research opportunities that one would get here. So thank you so much for taking that off the track, Vineet. Thank you so much for that. There's one question that comes up here, and that also came up in my mind. So while this scholarship is for the computer science and the sciences, does it also apply to the other science majors like psychology and economics?
Not at this point. So we have a BSc in psychology and we have a BSc in economics and finance. But as I said earlier, this is a very specific set of initiative led by certain donors, and we've identified a few majors where we want to promote research. And again, while as I said, this is a starting point. So while it's very clearly defined in terms of what majors we are supporting right now, but as a policy, as we go forward, there is a possibility other majors might be included, but not at this stage.
So yes, there is some request in the chat box for links to be shared. So students, while we are sharing the links in the chat box, you would be advised to look up the website. We have a very, very comprehensive website wherein all these details and FAQs are mentioned very clearly. So please do visit the website as well. Right. So there's one more question that I see in the chat box. And again, I think we've taken it in a different way, perhaps. Should we apply for this separately or with the regular application? So is this a separate process to apply for the science scholarship? Yes, it is.
The document is separate. However, it runs simultaneously with the financial aid need-based process. So you might have to fill two forms, but it happens at the same time. And this is a smaller form. It will have only two sections. You'll have to provide us with a statement of purpose and details of your income through by attaching income tax returns. Whereas the financial aid process has a lot of other details as well. But the processes will run simultaneously. And as I mentioned earlier, you must apply for both if you're looking at financial support from Ashoka.
Right. So just one more question, which is in continuation with this. Does this depend upon the screening? You mentioned earlier that there's a screening that happens, and after which the eligible candidates would be applying for it. So do they wait after applying? Do they wait for the screening and the the offer to come up for the scholarship?
Yes. So what we will do is we'll start this from round 2, which is round 2 results will be released next week, towards the end of next week. Out of those offers that we release, confirmed offer of admissions, we will identify students who meet the basic academic score criteria that we've mentioned. And if they meet that criteria, then they will receive a link from us, wherein we'll ask them to provide with the SOP as well as the income details. So they should wait, and they will get this link either along with the offer or maybe a day after the offer. And this will have two links, this particular communication. One will be the link to apply for regular need-based financial aid, and the second will be to also apply for the merit-based scholarship. Now there could be an off chance that when you apply for both, because you will go through another set of screening process. There are steps involved in finally selecting who gets the scholarship. As I mentioned earlier, you may not get the science scholarship, but you will still end up getting the need-based financial aid. And which is why I keep repeating that one must apply for both. If you qualify on need anyway, you will definitely get need-based aid. However, if you qualify for both, then you'll get a maximum of full waiver on tuition, or you could also get a maximum of full waiver on tuition and residence.
So that's a whole lot of very useful information, and I do hope the students were listening in. Over and above what we have already shared with the listeners, is there any pointer maybe coming from the financial aid team ahead of the next round? Jyoti, Ridesh, would you like to add something here? Some bit of advice, some little bonus piece of advice for our listeners here?
So Rangoli, we can only say, and we have already mentioned that if you feel that you believe that maybe you will not be able to afford the fee either in part or in full, then please feel free to apply, because we really want students who get selected at Ashoka that they should come and join the university, and financial standing should not be a problem in them joining the university. And as we have mentioned that the window to apply for financial aid will be open for 5 days. So when you're applying for financial aid, in case you face any issues, do reach out to us within that timeline, and we'll be happy to support you and help you. But please do stick to the timelines, since we also have a very stringent timeline to follow. So we expect you that you adhere to the timelines, and we are happy to help you.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. That is very, very reassuring. And this brings me back to another couple of audience questions before we wrap up for the day. Here's a student who wants to know, are the score criteria also defined for students from international boards like A-levels, where 98% could be a tough score to gain?
Yes, so I deliberately did not talk about each board separately because that would have been information overloaded. Once you go to the website, you will see that for each board, we have clearly specified what is the score cutoff for you to be eligible for the merit scholarship. So we have it clearly spelled out for CBSE, ISC, International Baccalaureate, Cambridge, and state boards as well.
Great, fantastic. Vineet, if you can also just kind of elaborate on this particular question, do NRI students, can they also apply for the scholarship?
Yes, absolutely. Our all our financial support programs, which now are two, which is need-based and merit scholarships for sciences, they are agnostic of your location. They have their own processes. We have a different screening process, for example, for the merit scholarship, but it does not depend on your status in terms of your domicile. And I understand why many students ask this every year, because many US colleges especially have a clear policy that they don't support international students in terms of financial aid. But that's not the case with the Ashoka. As long as you qualify the criteria of need, or now in this case merit, you can apply.
Great, thank you so much for that clarification, Vineet. And one last one before we wrap up. The 98% marks or the grades you specify, when we talk about school results and not the national entrance results, is this subject specific or is it an overall aggregate that you do?
This is best of 4 that we use as a generally accepted principle for all. For example, when you apply to DU, the percentage that we look at is the best of 4. That's the best of 4 that we're looking at here as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Vineet. And that's a whole lot of clarification we got from the financial aid team today. So thanks a lot, Vineet, Jyoti, and Hridesh, for that very insightful discussion on the Merit-cum-Means scholarship for the sciences and need-based financial aid. I'm sure all our listeners today have a lot of takeaways from this session. Thank you all for participating in today's webinar. We hope we were able to clarify most of your admissions related queries. A few last points before we wrap up today's session. Please take a minute to share your feedback with us. The link to the feedback form is in the chat box below. We'd like to welcome our audiences for an in-person open house happening across 10 cities from March 26th to March 27th. Talk to Ashoka representatives and clarify all your doubts regarding the university and liberal education. The interest registration link is in the chat box. Lastly, I would like to inform our audience that round 3 applications for the undergraduate program are open. The last date to submit your application in this round is 6th April 2022. You can start your application at apply.ashoka.edu.in. Please visit our website www.ashoka.edu.in for complete details on the admissions process and the timeline. If you have any further queries or would like to know more about Ashoka's unique interdisciplinary undergraduate program, you can write to us at ugapply@ashoka.edu.in or call us on the number provided on the screen. With a very big thank you to our financial aid team, to Vineet, to Hridesh, and to Jyoti. we wrap up the session for the day. Thank you once again. Stay safe and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Rangoli. It was a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rangoli. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session.
Thank you, everybody.